So I had the pleasure of mentoring Carolyn, Sarah, and Shireen, with the assistance of Sophia and Dawn. And what our students did, and I won't take too much away from your introduction, don't worry, but they were just looking at the effect of pollinator habitat on the pollinators in Jersey City. Okay. And so I'm not going to give any more of your presentation away, so I'll stop sharing. And Carolyn, will you be sharing? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent.
Can you guys see it?
Not yet. It says it's loading though. There we go.
Okay. So we worked on, as she said, studying the pollinators in Jersey City. This is our overall poster. So pollinators aren't just bees, they're also butterflies, wasps, and other insects and animals that tend to gather pollen from one flower and spread it to another, thereby pollinating. They help the growth of plants that can produce fruits, nuts, or seeds that are a food source for other animals. And they also play a huge part in our economy and agriculture. They help pollinate our crops and plants that contain important nutrients in our diet, such as vitamin E. In fact, 1 in 3 bites of your food is the result of pollinator-assisted pollination. They also help replenish crops that livestock graze on and assist the reproduction of plants used for fibers such as cotton and flax. However, these populations, as you can see in the second chart, are decreasing. Some of these are endangered and some of them are extinct in certain states where they used to be a lot more plentiful. A cause of this is increased urbanization, which in turn causes habitat loss. So there isn't as much green space for them to nest or to find food. Also, climate change and pollution and even pesticides that people use on farming crops and in gardens. So creating pollinator gardens will create a resting place for migrating pollinators, such as the monarch butterfly, whose populations are rapidly decreasing because of habitat loss and also because of a lack of gardens on their journey that would provide their food source and a space for them to rest on their journey. They also will give a space with diverse flowering plants that will attract more and a greater diverse array of pollinators. And so having this space for them to not only rest on a journey, but also to nest will encourage reproduction. And although we don't have crops in cities that require pollination, this will allow for them to reproduce here and possibly move into other spaces where we do have crops. This is also just a piece of nature for city residents to enjoy.
Hi, so basically we chose Canco Park and Fairmount Triangle Park because Canco Park is much more of an established pollinator garden in Jersey City, whereas Fairmount is a less developed pollinator garden. But in hopes of the future, there would be much more development occurring in Fairmount. We also knew that in order to successfully expand our knowledge about like pollinators in Jersey City, it was a necessity for us to have a place where we would document the information we accumulated throughout the process. We also knew that environmental conditions played a significant role in the pollinators' lives. Therefore, we documented time of day, temperature, humidity, wind, and miles per hour. We spent 20 minutes per section in each park. There are 4 sections in Canco and 4 sections in Fairmount. We documented the pollinators which visited each flowering plant and how much they were present. We conducted visits 2 days each week on Mondays and Wednesdays from 3:30 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. And on one day we would go to Canco, make our way to Fairmount later in the day around 4:30. And then we would alternate the next day in order to eliminate and completely just prevent biased information, because we knew it was important to emphasize on different parts of the days where the pollinators would be in the park. So yeah, that was the reasoning behind that.
Okay, so now for the results of our project. So obviously Kenko is already a very established pollinator garden, whereas Fairmont is a future potential pollinator garden. So obviously there will be some evident differences in the pollinator diversity and flowering plant diversity. So figure 1, which is like the bar graph on the bottom left corner, demonstrates the differences in pollinator diversity between Kenko Park and Fairmount Triangle. The bars represent how many times we had observed each pollinator in the 2 parks over our 3 weeks, with the green bars representing Kenko Park and the blue bars representing Fairmount Triangle. Overall, there was obviously a much higher total number of pollinators observed in Kenko Park as opposed to at Fairmount. Over the 3 weeks of data collection, we observed a total of 316 pollinators in Kenko Park compared to only a total of 168 pollinators at Fairmount Triangle. So the differences between these two totals could obviously be caused by multiple different factors, but the main factor that our group decided to focus on was the difference in plant diversity between the 2 parks. So figure 2 and figure 3 exhibit the different plant species that are present in each park. So figure 2 represents Kenko Park, which had a total of 21 different species of flowering plants, and figure 3 represents Fairmount Triangle, which only had 2 different species of flowering plants. And I just wanted to note that we only focused on flowering plants for our study because Kenko Park also has a lot of other different plants, but we didn't really account for those. And so the key to a good pollinator garden is diversity of plants in order to attract a wide variety of pollinators. So different pollinators are obviously attracted to different qualities in each plant. For example, pollinators such as the Melissates agilis are mainly attracted to a variety of flowers from the Asteraceae family. As demonstrated in figure 2, Kenko Park has a very wide variety of flowers in the Asteraceae family. That's what makes up the majority of the flowers in the park itself. And so that could, support the high frequency of Melissates agilis bees in that park. Fairmount Triangle only had 2 different flowering plants, which were both variants of garden cosmos. And these flowers have flat landing areas, which make it easier for pollinators to access the nectar in the plant. So in Fairmount, we saw a wide an abundance of Bombus gurisicalis bees, which prefer flowers with flat landing platforms because they have short tongues, which make it harder for them to reach any nectar that's deep within a flower. So the flat landing allows them to access the nectar better. So overall, the Asteraceae family attracted the most pollinators compared to the rest of the plant families. So for the discussion, so our data and results that we collected demonstrates the importance of pollinator gardens in our urban community. Our results indicate that diversity is very key and essential to a good pollinator garden. With the plans of developing Fairmount Triangle into a pollinator garden, the park at Fairmount can eventually become an oasis to pollinators, just as Kenko Park has already proven to be. These findings can provide a baseline for potential future study for after Fairmount Triangle Park has been installed. Researchers can essentially follow the same methods that we use to collect our data and determine whether or not installing a new garden was actually beneficial to increasing the number of pollinators that were in Fairmount. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks for listening, and if you guys have any questions.
Excellent. Thank you all so very much. Would you go back just to the main, the main slide, or the main like your whole poster, or it doesn't matter. These are great. Any questions from the rest of the group? Oh, Parbita, unmute you.
Yeah, I loved the breakdown of the species and the different behaviors and adaptations that you found. I was curious if you know much about like the pesticide use in these city parks and whether your study can help inform those practices for the local government.
Yeah, well, basically, obviously, I think it's very evident that everybody, well, a majority of people know that pesticides are really bad for pollinators, and it decreases the population immensely, which is horrible because obviously, as Caroline said before, that 1 in 3 bites of the food that we eat is produced by a pollinator. I feel as though like with more outreach, we can definitely use our poster and everything that the research that we've conducted to inform the public, because this poster, we can pull it out of just the computer screen and put it around parks. And I feel like the information will really get out there and really inform others about the importance of keeping pollinator gardens safe from pesticides and things that will completely destroy the chain and the environment for pollinators.
Yeah, and also Dawn also told us that there are no pesticides that are used in Kenko Park, but we're not 100% sure about how Fairmount Triangle is kept because we really have no idea who's in charge of that or, anything that's used there.
Great. Okay, Dawn, I am unmuting you.
Hi. So I think you actually answered the question that I had, but I just wanted to point it out because it was very important. I know that you focused on the flowering plants at Kenko Park, and that Aster-Casey family, that is what is in flower during the time when you were most focused on your research. But there is a multitude of things that would be flowering in the wildlife habitat garden that I think you would find fascinating. So I really invite you, my little team, to return again and again so we can look a little further into the wonders of all the varieties that are there and the pollinators that are attracted to them. So I'd love to host you to come back and visit again soon.
Thank you.
I have a question. Oop, am I unmuted? Yes. Did you notice that there was any effect of weather on what you found?
So we didn't notice any like noticeable trends with the weather that we were like able to clearly identify. But we did see like some trends with the wind, like higher speeds of wind would result in lower pollinators in the gardens.
Thank you. Any other questions for the pollinator team? There's a hand up. Sorry, I do have one more question. In the future, how would you expand upon this project? Anyone?
Well, there are many ways and many reasons why we should expand on the project. Well, one of them, honestly, one study that could happen would be how can the pollinators coincide with like the birds and how that affects their environment and their chain and their life. Basically, we could just go about it in so many ways. Like my brain can be in jumbles right now, but we could look at that. We could also look at what kind of plants attract the most pollinators, and if we would create a whole garden out of those plants, what would that look like, and what would that affect later on throughout the whole entire pollinators journey? Because obviously they fly from Mexico, they fly from many different places in the United States. So yeah, we could go about it in many ways, but those are just like 2 ways that we could, discuss. Yeah.
Thank you, Shireen. Okay, if there's no further questions, again, very nice job. And we are ready to move on to our final project.